Great, thank you very much. My screen share should be coming through here in just a moment. So what we're going to cover off on today is what is new in PERLS 2.2. At a high level, there are 6 key features along with a number of other bug fixes and notable changes that we've made since our last release just a couple of months ago. These are all in direct response to feedback we've received over the last couple of months, especially after our release from the base year back in February. And so at a high level, and we'll step through what each of these mean, what these new features are. There are new features both for content managers as well as learners. For content managers, they have what we are calling authoring quick help. They now also have autosave in their authoring interface, and they are benefiting from improved article feedback. Learners also have the ability for there is improved article feedback that they are able to give. They have a much easier way of editing their interests inside of the application. And they are also now able to set goals for themselves as well as annotate on the articles. So that's kind of our roadmap as we're going to step through the new features in PERLS 2.2 today. And so with that, let me switch over to my content manager interface. I'm already logged in here as the content manager. And the first thing I want to take a look at is some of the new quick help features that we have in the back end here. So I am going to pull up a learning object here that I've been working on recently. So for example, maybe I am working on this article here, 5 ways to define good communication. So a couple things right off the bat. We'll see at the very top of the page, we give some information to them about what is this, to help contextualize for them this type of content that they are creating. Just for quick context, the different types of content we have in the system, in addition to flashcards, quizzes, and tags, we have articles, which is content that is authored within the system, web links linking to published content elsewhere on the internet, and e-learning packages, which are content that is published in another e-learning authoring tool that can export to an XAPI compatible package. With each of these, we want to give some guidance to the content manager about how they can best create content like this. And so for a web link, we give indication about like this is for content published elsewhere on the web. And if I was coming to an article I've been working on recently, we also give indication about some guidance about what would make a good article. But this quick help is really not just saying like, oh, put a title in this field. As we step through this, you'll see that in addition to explaining what the field is for, we do want to try to help provide some guidance to them about what would make either a good article, what is a good title, what is a good description. And so, this quick help is more than just this banner at the top. As I come down through here, you see each of these fields now has a little indicator next to it that I can click on, and it can give me some contextual help about what is information I need to know that helps me, for example, select the right value, the right topic to select here. For a title, for example, I'm given guidance that suggests make sure to avoid jargon and acronyms when possible. That, of course, makes it more easy to show up in search results because some people may not be using the same jargon, and it just helps ensure better, I guess, accessibility to the content overall. I'm not going to click through each of these, but you get the sense that as I look through each of these fields here, they all have some information about what would make good content here, all within the goal of helping content managers write better content inside of the system. And so, for example, I see here that this is telling me that a good title would avoid jargon and acronyms. And I see that I already have an acronym right here in the title. So I might want to come up here and say, okay, it's not just TFC. This should actually be tactical field care. And I might put in a little bit of adjustment here to say, oh, hemorrhage control. And I'm going to keep coming through here and taking a look at the rest of my article. We're not going to step through all of the different authoring capabilities, though I'm happy to answer questions if you have them a little bit later on. Because what I want to focus on is, as we get down to the bottom, let's say I got interrupted at this point in time. I've made some edits to my article. I got interrupted, and maybe I accidentally closed my browser window, which I'm just going to go ahead and do right now. And I totally forgot to save my changes. I did not, I edited that title and I did not save them. In this case, I just edited the title, but you can imagine that if I've made significant changes to it, I have now lost some of that work, but not anymore, because when I come back and edit this article here, the system is immediately going to remind me that, hey, you had a version of this page that you were working on just minutes ago. You see my clock just rolled over to 1:40 p.m. and it's giving me a notice that says, hey, just a minute ago, there was an unsaved draft. Do you want to resume editing from there, or do you want to discard it? And just to call out, remember I edited the title, so it said TFC hemorrhage control. When I say resume editing, it's going to take back the changes that I had forgotten to save before. So for any article that and this works for other content types inside of the system as well. When a content manager is editing something they previously created in the system, periodically throughout periodically as they're working on the page, we are saving drafts of that document. Those drafts do not get published to the learner, so this is more than just a simple auto save, because we don't necessarily want these drafts to be published to the learner. They get saved in what we're calling a draft format, so that the content manager who's working on it can go back and access it in case they accidentally close out of it. But there's also not publishing changes to a learner that they may not be ready to receive. All right, so that is both authoring quick help and authoring autosave. Let's take a quick look at some of the improved feedback that the content managers are able to have from their content. So just as a reminder, before you already had the ability to come in and see what learner feedback existed inside of the system. So learners can provide feedback to specific topics as well as specific content types. But we really didn't give a content manager any way of seeing like what content was performing well with their learners, what were people resonating with. And so let me show you briefly what this looks like from the learner perspective, because I think that helps provide some helpful context here. So let me click into this massive bleeding. I'm now looking at the system as a learner. And down at the bottom, what used to be a 5-star rating system is now a very simple feedback system that wants to understand to the learner, like, was this relevant to you? And I can select yes or no. In this case, I will say yes. I can optionally provide additional feedback, but in this case, I'm just going to say, yep, it was great, and hit submit. We get a confirmation that my feedback from the learner was submitted to the backend. And now the content manager, I'll switch my browser window back over to the content manager view. They have a new section down here in their menu called analytics and user data. And right now, the key piece of functionality they have in here is feedback statistics, where they can see how their content is scoring. Now in this case, we don't have a lot of traffic in our system, so the number of responses and total score is relatively low. But what this view allows you to do is say, okay, I know I wanted that massive bleeding article. That was the one that the learner had just, as a learner, I just provided feedback on. And I can see that out of a total number of total number of responses of just one, the total score is 1. And as this were to increase, up votes are 1 point, down votes are negative 1 point, and they can get a sense of what is their highest scoring content of the system. So that is the content that it has been upvoted the most. But they also get a sense of, but because we're showing them the number of responses, like where's there maybe the most controversy over the number of articles, where there might be a high number of responses, but a low score might indicate that there's a lot of upvoting and downvoting. And of course, the content manager still has the ability to look through the individual responses if they want to see the feedback that was submitted from the learner. But that high level overview gives them a great summary to be able to go in and see, is there content that is consistently scoring low? That might be really good content. That might be a good candidate for content that needs to be revised or edited, or maybe pulled out of the system for a little bit while it gets worked on. So those are the new features from the content management interface. Before I dive into the learner, I'll pause just a moment to see if anyone has questions specifically on the new functionality that the content manager is receiving in PERLS 2.2.
Hi, this is Raghav. I work with Dr. Craig, and I'm on the ASU team for evaluation. I do have a question about, so when you create one of the cards, there's a section which says difficulty. So does the system give more information of how this particular difficulty is used by the system for providing content or recommending content?
Yeah, I know the field you're talking about. I believe right now it is meant to be mostly a metadata field for the content manager. There is an update that is being made to the recommendation engine that will, I'm sorry, to the adaptive testing piece. So when that functionality is released, that will the description along that field will update.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. All right, if there's not any other questions, I want to switch over to the learner interface where there's a lot of really exciting updates for our learners. All right, let me pull up my iPhone here. So I am switching over to a view of this is the iPhone that is sitting right next to me. It is actually my personal iPhone. So I'm gonna go ahead and launch PERLS here. Let me scooch this over to the middle of the screen. All right, so just as a reminder, the new functionality that we're taking a look at here we already took a look at improved article feedback. We're going to take a look at how a learner can edit their interests, how they can set their goals, and how they can make annotations on these articles. So very briefly, if you're familiar with PERLS 2.1, the learner has always had the ability to edit their interest, but it was a little bit hard to find. They could go into their profile, I could come up here, and you actually can still do this. I can go to my profile, edit my account, and I can essentially fill out additional interest here, almost as if they were tags inside of the system. But some of the feedback we received is that it was hard to know like what interests there were there, and we really felt like we gave a much better experience to learners when they were initially signing up for an account. So new under the Me section of the application is a screen where they can edit their interests, and it is a very similar experience that learners get when they are first onboarded to the application, where they see a list of all the possible interests in the system. Again, these are topics that the content manager is able to submit from the back end. I can filter these down if there's a specific interest that I'm in, that I want to see if it exists inside the system, or same way with onboarding, I can tap the ones that I want to add to my profile. I tap save, and the system immediately takes this. It saves my new interest, and in the back end, we are generating. In the back end, we'll be starting to take those into account as we generate recommendations for this learner. All right, on my way to this screen, though, you saw that there was this new goal screen. So previously we had inside the application a stats screen, and you can still see kind of the original functionality from that down below. We showed a user a high-level overview in terms of like the total number of items they viewed, total items completed, what they bookmarked, the total number of courses completed, etc. We still want to give those stats to the learner because we think that is helpful and interesting to the learner as they use the application over time and those numbers continue to grow. But we wanted to build on that and actually give the learner the ability to set their own goals inside of the application. We know that's such a critical part of self-regulated learning is for a learner to not only just customize the content of their experience, but be able to set kind of mile markers for themselves to be able to say, I want to be spending this much, I want to be spending this much time inside the application, looking at this much content, to ensure that I'm continuing to advance my own understanding, my own knowledge at a pace that I think is appropriate for me. And so across the top here, we have a couple of goals that the learner can now set up for themselves. They can set goals for themselves for number of articles per week, number of articles that they view per week. So this is articles that they would open up inside of the interface that maybe they don't necessarily complete, but just that they look at them. There is then, of course, to compare the kind of counterpart to that is number of articles they complete in a given week. We reviewed in the past that PERLS has two different content completion strategies. There's the automatic one once they've seen everything inside of the article, or there's continues to be the manual content completion strategy for things that we require the user to be more explicit about their completion, maybe because it required some action outside of the system. But in addition to articles, we also have goals for their average test score. You'll recall in PERLS 2.1, we added the ability for tests to be added to courses, and there's a lot of adaptive functionality that was added to that as well. we're going to keep track of their average score over the course of the week, and the learner can choose to set a goal for themselves to be able to say, on any given week, I want to make sure I'm getting at least 70 or at least 80% of these tests correct. And then finally, the last goal they can set for themselves is the number of courses they want to be completing over a month. So the first three are specific to week, because those are things that are generally have shorter time commitments associated with them, and we anticipate that learners may decide to change their goals maybe more rapidly with them. But then courses per month, because courses may be a little bit longer, there may be more content associated with them, and of course, articles are part of courses, and so over a given week, they may complete 6 articles, but that may only then earn them 1 course completion. So we're mindful of the time commitment required to reach some of these. Now you saw as I tapped on my screen there just a moment ago, that for any of these, I can come in and change my goal. When the learner sets up their account for the first time, we're going to go ahead and give them a default set of goals that we feel is, not necessarily too strenuous, but we want to introduce them to this concept of setting goals for themselves. But maybe this default goal of 6, I feel that's a little bit much that I'm able to commit to right now. I can tap on this. I can get more details about my status on this goal, but in this case, I would like to change my goal. So I'll tap on change my goal. I'm not interested in completing 6 per month. Maybe 4 is a better value for me. I'll tap save, and after a very brief moment, the application has been updated. You can see this screen as well as the one back here has been updated for that as well. You can do the same thing on something that you've already started on. So maybe this view 10 articles per week. 10 feels maybe a little bit too easy because the requirement is rather low. I just need to view them. I want to make this a little bit more challenging for myself, but I've already made some progress here because I've already viewed 8. So maybe I actually want it to be 20. So I'll increase this to 20. I'll tap save. And my status immediately updates on this. Not only is it just updating the numbers, but of course it's now showing me, like, great, before you were 80% complete because you're only going for 10. Now that you changed it to 20, we're only going to show you that you are 40% complete. So these goals we think are a great way, a great initial step in having learners, again, set their own goals to help encourage them within their self-regulated learning. We totally recognize, though, that it's very easy to, almost set it and forget it, but that's exactly what we don't want learners to do here. And so we've given them the ability to set a reminder for themselves about their goal. So I'm going to tap this button here, and I have the ability now to configure when do I want to be reminded of my goals. One of the pieces of functionality that is also new in 2.2 that wasn't called out on that slide is we've added push notifications. A content manager can manually send push notifications to the learners, or in this case, a learner can configure when they would like to receive push notifications to remind them of their goals. In this case, I've decided that the weekdays are when I really want to worry about this. The weekends are for rest, and 8 a.m. is a great time. And maybe I decide, 8 a.m. is when I need to start, my work day. Maybe I'd rather come in at 7 a.m. because that is when I'm having my morning coffee, and that's a great time for me to maybe go through 1 or 2 things. I'll tap save, very quickly updates my preferences. And I'm not going to ask anyone to hang around on the phone until 7 a.m. to see if this actually comes in. But to give you a sense of what this looks like, I'm going to flip back to the slide here. And this is what it looks like when it comes in on your device. What the system does is when it's time to remind you of a goal, and actually I'm going to show you maybe a more interactive version of this. I'm not sure how well this video will play, but what the system will do is that when it's time to deliver a goal, it will send you a notification about, it's going to take a look to see which of your goals are you closest to completing. We somewhat want to kind of encourage almost the snowball effect. So it's like you're closest to maybe your goal for viewing the number of articles. We're going to tell you about your progress on that, or maybe completing, maybe you're really close to your the number of articles you want to complete in a given week. We're going to tell you about that goal. So when it comes time to remind you of your goals, we're going to take a look at which of your goals are you closest to completing. We're going to call out your specific stats directly inside the push notification message. And when you tap on the message, we're going to take you right into the application so you can take a look at all your goals. And then from there, if you want to go look at your recommendations, you can start working through additional completion towards your goals so you can make it even further along. Again, this is totally configurable by the user. I can choose what time per day I want to be receiving these, as well as days of the week. All right, So that is goals inside of the application. I think I'll pause there. I have one more feature that I want to show, and it is one I'm pretty excited about, so I definitely want to leave enough time for it. But are there any quick questions about the ability to set goals or reminders within the system? All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to take a look. Oh, I'm sorry.
I said, looks great, Dan. Let's move on.
All right, yep, I'm going to go ahead and move on and take a look at notes. Of course, if the questions do pop up, I'm sure I'll come back around at the end, and I'm sure we're also happy to field questions later on as well. So the last new feature that we want to be able, that we wanted to give learners within PERLS 2.2 is the ability to annotate directly inside of articles. Again, as part of providing the most value to the learner and them being able to kind of regulate their own progress and learning through the system, is that we want to give them the ability to add highlights and notes directly with inside of articles that are authored inside of the system. So I'm looking at my recommendations here. I'm going to pick off this very first recommendation that it's suggesting for me. And you'll notice that there's a new little flag hanging out on the right-hand side. This is telling me that I don't have any annotations, no notes on this document or on this article right now. But as I'm reading this, I recognize that this is really important information, or maybe I have some questions about it that I think I should follow up with someone about, or I want to ask a colleague about. So I can, using just I'm tapping and holding the device here, I can select some of the content here. In addition to some of my native options, I have a new option down here, which is create note. When I tap on that, I now have the ability to add some notes with this. I could skip that if I wanted to, but in this case, maybe I want to say something to the effect of, it's like, like I need to ask Chad more about this type of thing. And of course, there's not really, they can choose to use this whether they want to ask questions, if they will have like their own personal experiences they want to tie in here, something that helps makes this content more personal to them, so they have a better chance of understanding and continuing to enhance their learning. I'm going to save that. And now, as I'm looking at this article, this content shows as highlighted and along the right-hand side. But what once said 0 now says 1. I can tap on that, and it's going to show me all the notes that I had inside of this article. I could have 1, maybe I have 15. No matter how many notes I have, it's going to show me all of my notes here. I can tap on it to see what was the content that was highlighted. You notice that it expanded directly in line here, but it also scrolled me in the background to where that content was inside of the article. I could delete or edit my note here as well. But let's pop out of this because there's, of course, not just one article in the system. There are many articles inside of the system. And so what we want to be able to give learners the ability to do is see your notes across everything inside of the system. So inside the Me section, moving past goals, interests, and everything we've had before, bookmarks and history, we now also give learners the ability to view their own notes inside of the system. So I'm going to tap over here, and you see right away the screen updates to show me here is a new note that I have inside of the system. I can tap on that, and it's going to take me directly back to that article. I see my highlight has been preserved here. This is a totally different screen inside of the system. And in fact, not only does it remember this on your mobile device, but let's flip over to the learner view that I originally had up here. I'm going to tap on the Me section in the web interface. I'll go to my notes, and I see that I have the exact same note appearing here. Because I have a larger screen, I even get more context about my note. I can click on this, and it's going to take me directly back to that article. My highlight has been persisted. This is a totally different screen size, a totally different device, but it is my same account. And so no matter whether I'm using on my desktop or on my mobile phone, my notes are being brought with me, and I'm able to see a collection of those notes from my Me section here to help me continue to advance my own understanding within this content. And we hope learners will find that to be really useful as they use PERLS to further their understanding of whatever topics they need to. So that is a high-level overview of what we've added in PERLS 2.2. Again, just a reminder, the things we took a look at today were our authoring quick help, the ability for autosave inside of the authoring interface, some improvements to article feedback, improvements to how learners can edit their interests, the addition of personalized goals inside of the system, as well as reminders about those goals using push notifications, as well as the user's ability to edit article annotations inside of the system. Also not appearing here because it's not necessarily obvious to users, PERLS 2.2 also introduced some major system updates to add, we are now running on Drupal 9, and we have added support for the latest versions of iOS and Android that came out in September. So that's iOS 14 and Android 11. All right, so that is PERLS 2.2 in a nutshell.
Excellent work, Dan. Thank you very much for that very informative demo. Everyone here at the Flow team is extremely happy and excited with the quality of these features that we've been able to deliver completely on time and send directly into ADL for their review. I know that we've got some evaluations coming up here in first portion of November. But again, you know, as external stakeholders, DSRs on the line, we are so excited to get this product into your hand, and we are very much looking forward to the feedback and review that you're all going to provide to it. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the ADL team. Ulf, Karen, Brent, Van, anybody have anything to say or share before we let people go on with the rest of their day?
Thank you, Chad. Impressive demonstration, and thank you for setting this up. And we have had a great experience for the last 30 minutes and a great audience. Before I let Karen and Van into some final remarks or comments on this, I just want to reach out and see if there is any stakeholder who would like to ask a question or comment this. So over to stakeholders. Anything from you?
See that Brent has a question that's in chat, and actually this is Phil Abinaj from DAU. I wanted to know if you guys were available to stick around to answer some additional questions, because I think we were waiting for version 2.2 to be released before we continue discussions with you guys.
Over to you, Chad. Is that a possibility for you?
Yeah, I can stick around for a few moments for sure, certainly, and be happy to take more questions at that time. If you don't mind, I'm going to end the recording now.
Yes, please.
Okay, excellent.